As bourbon and whiskey trends continue to unfold, here's 7 distilleries to watch in 2024. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Bourbon Hunt, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So, as things continue to shake out in the bourbon and whiskey world in 2024, I wanted to put together a list of, ended up being 7 distilleries that I think are worth keeping your eye on. And this list is kind of made up of 2 main prospects. One is distilleries that I think are still releasing great products at a pretty reasonable price. So paying attention to them means you might get good bang for your buck. Second category is distilleries that are setting trends, either with price going up and potentially quality going down, sometimes negative trends. And they're the ones that, if you keep an eye on, you might be able to see where the whole whiskey world is going to head in the next year plus. So let's dive into the list. And I think all of these, if you pay attention to this year, it's going to increase your awareness of the whiskey world, but also hopefully get you some great bottles. So the first one on my list is Redwood Empire. So coming all the way from California out on the West Coast, this is a distillery, a craft distillery that's gained a lot of traction in the last couple of years. That's because they release solid stuff. Their Grizzly Beast bottled and bond bourbon, Rocket Top bottled and bond rye are both kind of hitters in that $80 to $90 category. Then their staple stuff, the Lost Monarch in particular, is available for around $35 to $40 and just really, really good. A unique kind of blend of bourbon and rye, a Boo Rye. So I think that they're worth keeping an eye on. 2 particular releases this year, early in the year in January. Devil's Tower High Rye Bourbon, which is going to be like 45% rye. So that's going to be really interesting to try. And then Foggy Barrel Single Malt. I don't particularly love single malts, but I trust Redwood Empire to kind of knock this out of the park. Both of those will probably be around $90. And another feature of them that I think is just worth noting is their bottles are beautiful. So they're basically like getting pieces of art to add to your collection as well. So Redwood Empire, keep your eye on them. Next on my list, Chattanooga Whiskey. So this is another craft distillery that's just always experimenting, doing new things, and nothing demonstrates that more than their bottled and bond annual releases. They're actually biannual. They always do a spring release and a fall release. Every single bottle I've had, and I think I have like 3 of them, they're so different than pretty much anything else I've tasted. They do really wacky things with the mash bill, lots of different malts and toasts and all this stuff that somehow they get to blend together into these really interesting whiskeys. So I can see those somewhat regularly for around $50, and that's just good value. So if you've been sleeping on Chattanooga, especially their bottle and bond releases, I'd give those a try. They also have the 111 cask strength that is just really, really good for, again, around that $45 mark. So Chattanooga Whiskey is number 2. All right, number 3. This is one that is interesting to watch because of its trend-setting nature and also because I think they deliver great products, and that's Bardstown Bourbon Company. So Bardstown is one of those distilleries that began as craft but has now become one of the top 10 whiskey producers in the world. They've rapidly increased their production. They've gone from basically no distribution to pretty much every state in the country. Their hope is to hit them, I think, by the end of 2024, 2025. So they're expanding rapidly. Their Origin series release from early last year, all great stuff, especially the bottled and bond. We did, if you ask me, one of the best $50-ish releases in years. Discovery series continues to impress. The Discovery Series 11 is well sought after. I'm still hunting for one because it's got some great Kentucky old bourbon in it. And then just all their collaborations that they do with all the different kinds of finishes, and they're always kind of innovating. So they've still got that craft edge, but they're massive. So it's interesting to see how they might forge this middle path between craft and huge distillery. And I think they're already doing a pretty good balancing act. Okay, next on the list is a big boy that you guys all know, and that is Heaven Hill. So Again, this is one that ultimately I think they do a pretty dang good job of offering great products at quality prices. Larceny Barrel Proof and Elijah Craig Barrel Proof for $60 and $70 MSRP respectively continue to be great values. They are experimenting. They've taken the age statement away from Elijah Craig, and now they're releasing younger stuff. Especially, apparently this first batch of the year, A124, is going to be 10 years, 9 months old. So getting younger, that tells you age statements. As stocks dwindle for these companies because the bourbon boom has been draining them, you might see less and less aged products, which we've already seen happen over the last couple of years. And then I think that just will the quality go down in Elijah Craig? That's always a big question. Last year it kind of fluctuated up and down, and C923 was legendary. Also, they're releasing a toasted rye, which alongside their toasted bourbon should be available for around $50 if they keep the pricing, somewhat in line with that. I guess we'll just have to see. That's why we're going to watch, especially around the first couple months of that release. How much hype does it get, and does it become impossible to find? Okay, next on the list for me is another craft distillery that I think is forging ahead in terms of blending whiskey, and also just I have never seen a miss from them yet, and that is Barrell Craft Spirits. Batch 34 and Batch 35, both absolute hitters. They just released their foundation bottle, which is the first time they're doing something non-barrel strength. It's 100 proof, I believe. My gut tells me Barrell Craft Spirits is sort of an anchor of quality in the bourbon world. Now, a lot of their stuff is more premium pricing, like $80 to $90. But honestly, in today's market, that's not that bad for something that is really, really good. And then their foundation is available for much cheaper than that. I think it's around $50. So we are looking at a craft blender that is just killing the game. And I think that as long as they continue to offer those $80 to $90 bottles at a really, really good quality point, everybody else is moving more and more expensive. If they can just hold there, they're going to really take over that part of the market. Okay, next is a really interesting one, kind of a sleeper pick here, and that is Nelson Brothers Distillery. So this is the Greenbrier Distillery. They transitioned their whole Nelson Brothers line. It used to be Belle Meade, and now it's Nelson Brothers to stay more under their umbrella of like discernible brands. They're going to release a couple of different finished products apparently, and I think the question here really is, can they get their feet under them and re-emerge as one of the better quality options? Because Belle Meade in particular was a fan favorite, and Nelson Brothers doesn't seem to have gotten quite the amount of traction it had, and some people were a little disappointed. So interested to see if a brand like that can shift, bring something under their umbrella, and still gain traction. Okay, last but not least is another big boy that I think is definitely one of the biggest trendsetters, and unfortunately in the last couple of years that's been in a negative way with pricing. So that is Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey has some of the most affordable, best quality staple options. Rare breed for around $50 is an absolute hitter. Wild Turkey 101, you can still get that for around $20-25, and it's just a great quality product. The ryes are pretty good too, and cheap. When it comes to premium products, that's where we have huge trend-setting power going on at Wild Turkey. We've seen Master's Keep. Last year, the Voyage was a 10-year-old bourbon, and the price jumped all the way to $275 MSRP, I believe. Before that, it was like $175. So a $100 increase. Russell's Reserve, 13. That first came out, and it was available for, I think, $80. Now, I think it's above 100 MSRP, and I can expect that maybe to just keep climbing. So it's sort of interesting that Wild Turkey has sort of divided itself. It's got these cheap, great options, and then it's got the most expensive premium stuff out there in a lot of cases. So when they release Master's Keep Triumph this year, which is going to be a 10-year-old rye. I'm curious, what's the price going to be? Is it going to get good reviews? They're also releasing Russell's Reserve 15, which is 2 years older than the Russell's 13. Is it going to get good reviews? But more importantly, what the heck is that price point going to be? It's going to be telling. At some point, you have to imagine you hit a ceiling with your premium pricing, even if you're keeping your core audience happy by keeping your cheap stuff, available and affordable. Just at some point, you price people out of even trying to get your premium products. So I think Wild Turkey is one to watch as one of those premium trendsetters. Like, where is the pricing going to go, and is the quality going to stand up? Especially because a 10-year-old bourbon and voyage and a 10-year-old rye, that's not super aged. That's not 17, 18 years. That's not even 15 years. It's a little bit lower age at a very high price. So we'll see. Wild Turkey, one to keep your eye on. Okay, everybody. Those are my 7. Those are my 7 distilleries this year that I definitely want to keep an eye on and see how they develop. Some craft that I'm impressed with and want to see continue to progress, and some big boys that I want to keep an eye on in terms of quality and pricing in the whole bourbon world at large. Let me know what you thought of the list in the comments below, and let me know if I missed any distilleries you think I should be keeping an eye on. Until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey. Hopefully things develop in a positive way this year with bourbon, and cheers.